It's said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and you see that in a lot of mismanaged charity projects, and also in charities that misunderstand the way that humanity is, the way that people are. I guess an example of that would be Live Aid. For those who remember, it was a big charity project about 15 years ago that was designed to send money to the poorest regions of Africa in an attempt to alleviate poverty. What we actually did was increase the rates of poverty over in Africa. We actually caused a lot of businesses to shut down. And by businesses in the poorest parts of Africa, what I'm referring to is, you know, a guy who owns some chickens and is trying to sell the eggs. Well, with Live Aid, we literally flooded the market with free eggs. So that guy had to go out of business, because who's going to buy eggs when you've got free eggs? And that's just one example. But we've literally flooded the market with free stuff. And why would anybody create a business in that environment when you've got free stuff? You don't need to feed your family, and you don't need to create a business and where there's inherent risk and everything. And so we made the situation overall worse through an attempt at charity. It's ironic. There's also the thing where economic disparity is what drives capitalism. So if I'm reasonably poor, I'm going to look at somebody who is richer or wealthier and want some of what they have. And that sense of greed and covetousness in man's nature is what drives capitalism. It's like capitalism tries to turn those negative traits into good things. That's, I guess you could say, how it works. Well, there's a recent example that's closer to home. Well, Panera Bread, the big restaurant chain in the United States, well, they had this kind of experimental subset. I think it was 5 different restaurants, and they were called Panera Cares. And it was supposed to be a charity where people could go in and they could pay whatever it is that they were able to. There was like a suggested donation rate. And then they could pay more, or pay less, or pay nothing. And they believed that this would be sustainable, that enough people would pay more to compensate for those who paid nothing. That is not what happened. And I think a lot of people would guess that. In fact, I'd even say a lot of conservatives especially would guess that, because they tend to understand human nature a little more. But let me go ahead and show you Panera Cares and their website. Here we go. So here they are. Obviously a charity, Panera Cares, making a difference. See, I don't want to hit them too hard, because obviously they are actually, or were, trying to do something nice. And I think that charity tends to be a great thing, especially when you're not taking from people with force, right? Which is how government-based charities work. I shouldn't call it charity, that's just government theft. But hopefully you know what I mean. Well, in these stores, you see, you have essentially an honor system, right? Because the idea is you pay more if you have more. Well, an honor system only works with people who are honorable. And an honorable person, I would hazard to say, would be more likely to go to the regular Panera Bread. Why? Because if you go to the discount one, it feels like you're cheating someone. You're either cheating the poor person, you know, by perhaps paying less, or the restaurant, because maybe they've got a discounted rate, or yourself because you're paying more than you should to subsidize some college kid who ought to be paying but isn't. There's a lot of overlap there, but there are a lot of reasons where you just go to the regular one. But those who didn't, those who were attracted by Panera Cares, were people like college students. And they've said that a lot of college students went and paid less. Because for all of their virtue signaling, it turns out that college students aren't that charitable. I know, it's a shock to no one. But really, they virtue signal like crazy, but when it really comes down to money coming out of their wallets, or out of their paycheck, or however you want to put it, that's when suddenly they don't agree with these programs. They support them as long as they don't think it's actually going to affect them. And you see this in this Panera Bread thing, but there's this, one of the big reasons that I'm ashamed to be a millennial is there's this culture of entitlement amongst young people. And it's awful. It's this idea that you owe me something, whoever you are. The government owes them something, owes them a free education, owes them a basic living wage, and all this stuff. And nobody owes them anything. But with this Panera Bread, it just kind of made the point that you've got these people who supposedly are so concerned about the poor. They're not, but they say they're so concerned about the poor, but when it comes to their wallets, they're not really as concerned anymore. Yeah, well, let's get back to that universal basic income, because there's some overlap. It's essentially the same thing as what Panera is doing in a sense, and this is something that the far left in the United States has been pushing for a while now. This idea that you can give a person a paycheck for no reason, just literally hand him cash, and he will do great things. That people are held back by not having cash. That if they just had an influx of money every month to cover their food and housing, basic expenses, they would innovate and create businesses and seek higher paying jobs and all this great stuff. It's not true, but this is this kind of thing that we've heard. Well, Finland decided to try it on a smaller scale, but they decided to put through a 2-year experiment in which they paid people, I think it was $636 a month. For nothing. They just literally got handouts, regardless of whether they worked or not. Yeah, I'll go ahead and show you this. Yeah. So here we go. It's at the halfway mark, so it's a year in. And we come down here to the bottom, because we've got 5,000 people, right? The report found that those on basic income and the unemployed people in the control group ended up working roughly the same number of days. Who would have thought, right? The only benefit that they have seen so far, and again, we're a year in, so the conclusions, frankly, that's long enough, right? The only benefit is that these people self-reported that they were happier and less stressed. Well, of course they are. They're getting free money. Who wouldn't be happy when you're getting, you know, a check every month? Sure, that puts a smile on most people's faces. They can buy stuff thanks to the fact that they still live in a capitalist system. So it's not really surprising at all, but you've got these different socialists who are defending it and saying, okay, so maybe we didn't have any of the benefits that we thought that we would, as in we didn't have anybody starting businesses, we didn't have anybody going to work for longer or looking for employment, or any of these things that they said would happen, but they're happier. It's like, yeah, but they're happier, but they're not doing anything, which is in complete contrast to what essentially we're promised. And if you look at the great inventors and innovators of society, like look at Edison, right? Because he's probably the most famous inventor in American history, produced like 100 different electronic devices. We use them in our society today. In fact, his inventions have been used and built upon, and are in large part responsible for our quality of life. Well, he worked 16-hour days, and he's known for pushing his employees to stay up and do the same. This is a guy who, you know, he didn't sit back and just come in a couple of hours because he felt like it. And that's the modern culture of the millennial generation, if you will. And I think it's something that's beginning to happen just in society at large. There's work minimally, do minimally, sit at home, play video games, maybe smoke pot, you know, that kind of thing. No, the real success, the real innovation comes from those who are pushed hard, right? I think he's the guy that said it was 10% invention and 90% perspiration, right? We have to recognize essentially human nature, and things like universal basic income don't. The Panera Bread model didn't either. I mean, it's again, I like charities, but that was bound to fail. And what they did really was they embraced this whole leftist notion that people will because they should, and that's not true. Like, if you told people you should work because society at large needs it, and if everybody works, society will be better off. No, people aren't going to work if you're just giving them a paycheck. It's kind of ridiculous, in fact, to suggest that they would. Alright, anyway, I just thought I'd kind of share that with you guys. If you enjoyed it, and I hope that you did, please like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe if you haven't, and I've got a link in the description that'll provide you with better ways to be notified of new videos. There's also links that'll provide you with ways to support the production of these videos. Thank you so much to those who have already. Thank you. Bye-bye.